Okay. Hey guys, HCG Chica, welcome back. We're on episode 28 now of the HCG Diet Interviews. I have Nancy with me today. She's lost 75 pounds this year, 2014, with the HCG protocol. And we're going to cover a few basics, about her weight loss journey. But what's special about today is that we're going to actually go into great detail about her phase threes this year. And that's because she's gone into a lot of detail on her phase three and done it successfully. And I know that that's one of the things that you guys want more help with, because as we'll talk about, phase three is really, actually she came up with a good word for it, a bridge between P2 and P4. And that it's a very important part in order for this weight loss journey to actually last, for the weight loss to last. So welcome, Nancy. How are you today?
Very well today. It's such a pleasure to be online with you today.
Yeah, I'm so excited. So Nancy sent me this is the most detailed interview, as far as information I've gotten that I've ever had. Like, she sent me all this awesome information, and what's great is everything we covered today that she's typed out for me. I'm gonna have all of it in the blog post that goes with this interview for you guys. Okay?
Yeah, glad it can be utilized. I hope that a lot of people are really benefited.
Yeah, definitely. So why don't you just start out? You just tell me, just your basic statistics, your age and height, and how your size has changed, stuff like that.
Okay. Yep, I am 58 years young, almost 59. I'm 5 foot, 5.5 inches tall, and I went from 223 pounds and then some last February to 148 just end of November. And let's see, clothing size. I was down to one pair of pants I could wear, and they were real stretchy ones. So I think I was 22. And currently, I'm size 8 to 10.
That's
So
awesome.
my size 10 are loose on me, but I like them because they're longer pants. So that I'm sure I could fit into 8s.
Yeah, and it's nice just to be comfortable.
Oh yeah,
Like,
yeah.
sometimes you can squeeze into something, but I'd rather just be comfortable.
That
So,
sausage feeling of it, right?
right. Yeah, like a balloon that hasn't been blown up, stretched,
Yeah,
over.
yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thanks for sharing all that. So a huge drastic change there. And I think I have in your notes here, so you've done this year, 2014, you did 3 rounds. Is that right? About 42 days each.
Yep,
And then you had the two P3s in between of those.
yep, yeah.
Or,
And
well,
I have
there's three.
two P3s completed and on a P3 now. Yeah.
Right, gotcha. Okay, cool. And it looks like you lost about 27-ish pounds on each round, 20,
Yep,
25.
27.5 on the first one, 27 on um, the second P2, and then 25.5 on this
Okay.
latest one. Yeah.
And just to clarify for everybody, so her average weight loss was about point six to 0.65 pounds per day.
Yep.
Because I do get that question a lot, how much weight will I lose on a round?
Yeah.
And it does vary.
Was
But in general, yeah, for most women, they're going to lose between, depending on how lean you are, or how much weight you have to lose, point 0.5 to point 0.6 or so will be the average, and that's pretty expected.
Yeah.
And that's good. I mean, look how far you've gotten, in just this year with
I'm
breaks.
amazed. I'm so
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah. And you look so healthy and vibrant too. Your skin looks healthy and yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
That's something else I go into great detail with.
Awesome. What was some of your inch loss on your waist and do you have that handy, or I
I
have
lost
it
a
here?
foot, 12 inches off my waist.
That's
I'm
amazing.
amazed.
Yeah, I don't know how, yeah, I don't have my thing with me, but yeah.
My brain's got to catch up with it. It's like, you're not big anymore. You're small. You're a nice size. Yeah. And then 9.75 off my bust, and 10.25 off my belly, and then 8.25 off my hips. So I'm just amazed, and I'm dealing with some loose skin right now.
Mhm.
I've never had that before in my weight loss efforts, but boy, it sure is uh, better to deal with that than than
Yeah,
having.
that's kind of what I tell people who ask about that too. It's like it's kind of up to you. It's like either have the extra fat or have a little loose skin. I mean,
Yeah,
most people will choose the loose skin.
definitely. It seems to be tightening up in areas too, so it's not a problem.
Oh, good. That is, and also I liked to you measured it around your knee because that's where a lot of people have fat
Oh my
too.
goodness,
And
yes.
you had lost about five, almost 6 inches actually on one of your knees, around your knee. So that's
Yes. I would like to, like, if I lay in bed, pick my legs up and see if I could touch my fingers, just over my knee, and it wasn't happening for a long time, and now I can, and so that was just kind of a quick indicator. So yeah, 6 inches off my knee. Wow.
that's half. That's awesome. Yeah, and I like that too because probably your inch loss maybe came off in different places more in different rounds. I don't know if you paid attention to that.
Oh yes. It was very interesting how that happened, and especially how on this the latest P3 how it really came off on the backs of my legs and yeah, and my arms. Also, and just a side note is without doing fruit on the P2, where the glycogen stores are coming back too. That's kind of interesting. So,
That's true
but it
too.
keeps,
'Cause it does take a pace.
yeah, it keeps me from looking gaunt at the weight.
Right.
It's a more healthy look. So, yeah, it's better to have that little cushion there.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that too because yeah, because glycogen stores are totally normal. It's a natural part of your how your body looks. And like sometimes when you see pictures online of people, like when you go on a really low carb diet, you do tend to lose the glycogen
Yeah.
stores. So like even if you see like my videos, my regular
Hmm.
hCG diet videos that I did on my final round,
Yeah.
I wasn't doing the fruits. I look pretty lean. Like my face here
Yeah.
is leaner. But that's because I didn't have the glycogen
Yeah.
stores. So it's fun in a way, but it's not really like maintainable,
Yeah.
Um,
It's,
and so like I'm healthier and I probably look a little stockier, but my body fat percent is actually the same. It's just, like you said, that extra normal amount of
yeah.
water your
Yeah, it's
body
a
has.
beautiful, healthy look. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's nice, but sometimes I think we have to like change our perception of what we view as attractive and healthy, and know like, okay, this is what why this lean look is possible. It's you can do it for a few days, but it's hard to keep on a daily basis. So that's you don't have to shoot for that.
Yeah,
You
very
know.
good point. It's and balance and health are really the way to go.
So we're gonna get into the main point of what we really want to talk about today, which is all about phase three. So Nancy was very just slow and gradual and just very present with these P3s she's had this year. We'll compare them to some previous P3s in the past that didn't go well, and a lot of us have those types of P3s in our
Yeah.
past. And so we're just trying to draw that comparison and know exactly what types of things we can do to really make it work and to actually
Yeah.
stabilize. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, how have some of the phase threes for you gone in the past before this year?
I found out about hCG in about 2009 when I saw my friend shrinking, and I thought, wow, that's how'd you do that? And I think, and I would go on P2s. I can't tell, I think I had about three successful phase twos where I'd lose between 20 and 30 pounds, and then, but just gave kind of lip service. Oh yeah, there's a phase three, there's a phase four, but I've lost the weight, and uh, and I basically just gave either lip service to it or ignored it. And so, and with that, I can't tell you how many P2 fails I had between 2010 and 2013 too. So,
Gotcha. So you would lose the weight on phase two, but then since there wasn't really much attention to the phase three and phase four, you just gradually gained
yeah, it
it
was
back.
just one more way to be a yo-yo, to have that yo-yo dieter's mentality.
Can you expand on that? Like, what is that mentality that causes us to kind of brush aside the P3? Why do you think that we tend to forget like that it's important or to not put an emphasis on it?
I think that for me, earlier in years, I found that the sensationalism over phase two was, lose the weight, and there was just not that much emphasis on P3 and how to keep it off and make a lifestyle change. And so I was just all, I was in that flow and just didn't pay attention. Let me, if I clarify the question for me, if I didn't answer it well.
No, no, that was good. Yeah, no, because like I said, some of this is off the cuff.
Okay,
So.
and the first one of the first things I notice if there's a a slip up or a cheat, is like my perfectionism. Oh my, it's got to, that number on the scale has got to stay right there, and when it doesn't, shame kicks in, guilt, and then this drivenness to fix what I've made a mess of, and uh, then um, then I would stop weighing myself because I was too ashamed to look at the number. Then I'd keep eating. And what is it about me that I lost all this weight, and then I eat because I'm ashamed that I've had it? Like eating is going to fix it. I mean,
No, it's what we do though. I made this little HCG cartoon, like you know how I
yes, I
draw little
love those
stick
little.
figures. So, it's like I'm eating chocolate cake because I feel so bad that I ate chocolate cake.
Exactly.
It's true. I did the same thing, and I think you're right. Like it goes back to a little bit of that perfectionism issue that as soon as you make one mistake, it's like you feel like, oh, I failed, and then the comfort is
Yeah,
in the food,
temporarily.
you know. So it's just this
Yeah,
vicious
and
cycle, you know.
I had struggled with my weight, just really end of high school, all my adult life, and so um, I had just ingrained a yo-yo mentality. Life would take over, and I talk about how emotional triggers would take place, things I didn't want to deal with, and um, I was trained up very well that just that butter ice cream, that just make everything better, eat something, so it just reinforced a yo-yo dieter's mentality, in a whole range of emotions that crop up with that. So this was the time to take the scissors to the string on the yo-yo.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and I like all that you said. I was thinking about sometimes they talk about like the dieter's mentality. And like you said, sometimes as soon as you gain a couple pounds, you automatically think, oh, I have to go on a diet. And that we're trying to get away from that. And I realize like part of it is I think a lot of women, we find ourselves, you're in one of two places. You're either dieting or you're eating or like whatever, and you're not really conscious of what you're doing. It's kind of like either or instead of like the other part of life, which is like just being conscious and making good choices on a daily basis to keep things in
Precisely,
balance, you
yes.
know?
Yeah, that's just um, very, very aptly put, and that's where I was at. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Okay. So we talked about like the things that didn't work, and those are the types of things that a lot of us have suffered from. I had a failed P3 too, where I was basically like pretended it didn't exist, and hoped that it wouldn't matter, and it did matter, and then it was like, and I didn't know how to fix it or just readjust myself, and so let's talk now about what has made these P3s this year for you, because and we'll show the graph too. Nancy, if you see, she has this graph of her weight in P3. It's extremely stable. She never had
It's
to do a steak
amazing.
day. And she gradually increased her calories too, because and we'll talk about that, because I actually just got another email recently where the person's like, I'm so scared about P3
Oh yeah.
because I'm eating 500 calories, and sometimes we stall or something, and so you feel like, how could I possibly eat 1,500
That
calories and
is
not gain
that's
weight?
so
But
right.
it
That
is,
was part of
yeah,
like the dieter's mentality creeping back in. Is like, how is it going to work? No, this is a whole new thing. It's
It's different. The hormones out of your body, your body's smart, it will adjust. And what's so cool is you'll see in her graph, she's eating, 700 calories one day in the beginning, and then at the end she's eating 1,500 calories. Her weight is the same. It's not going up. So that's encouraging. So you mentioned that there's four main differences that you applied that were kind of the things that guided your
Yeah,
P3s this year. Can you share
I'd
those
be
four
glad
things
to.
with us?
I looked back 2010 to 2013 and then looked and said, what is the difference that caused me to form an action plan that was successfully carried out for P3? Number one, I was still am motivated by serious health issues. I had studied as a nutritionist in the past, and we were taught that sometimes people do not make pivotal changes in their diet until they're faced with a health issue. And so I knew all this in my head, but now it was time for the rubber meet the road, and I had to get that weight off, and not stress my adrenals and my thyroids by any more yo-yoing. It was done over. Number two, more knowledge about hCG, phase 3 and phase 4. I noticed on the internet, of course, meeting hCG Chica and finding the recipes and all that. And also I looked back in my files and I found a file of an outline of what phase 3 is all about. It was from Kevin Trudeau's book, as well as Dr. Simeon's information. And I just reread that each time I went into a phase 3 and go, okay, here's the ground rules. And so I applied, I just enjoyed the more knowledge I had about phase 3 and phase 4, which tempered the sensationalism of phase 2. I was ready for new food combinations and kind of just new preparation methods. I had looked into raw food eating, and I had some of the gear in my kitchen to slice vegetables really thin, fruits really thin, and I really was interested in how to use spices instead of calories to enjoy eating. And so I took that time to, it's like, boy, I've got this knowledge, I'm ready to use it. It really
Yeah, you spent a good amount of time then, like preparing yourself and really
Yeah,
researching
just
that whole side of
what I
things.
had over the years of what I'd learned and gained. Okay, now it's time to apply it. And then number 4, uh, last but not least, is I read and applied the information from the book Weight Loss Apocalypse by is it Robin Woodall? Is her name?
I have it
Yes,
right
my
here. I know it's
belly.
backwards.
Yeah.
What we all started with.
Yes,
What we
it
all
is.
started with. Yeah, this book, you guys, she'll tell you more in a sec, but I pretty much recommend it to every single person
Absolutely.
that's doing this protocol. So tell us why. What is it that how did this book
There's a
help
lot in it
you?
um, that that is yet to apply, but the main 2 points in this P3 we're talking about is the understanding of what the fat hormone leptin is, and Robin's graphing of the process from hunger to being ravenously hungry, then to being content, not even thinking about food. Um, and what's the other side? I lost my track of my.
Oh, no, it's fine. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
the
the
hunger
hunger
scale, just
scale. That's
going
it.
from, either contentment to being ravenously hungry, or contentment up to so full I've made myself sick. So yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, so that's what she's talking about. Robin calls it the hunger scale, and it's just it's a different way, and not that you can't calorie count here and there, and we're going to talk about that too. But I actually hate to
Me
count
too.
calories, so I don't do it. But this is a different way of gauging how much food your body needs to be healthy and to maintain, and it's based on actually being more in tune with how like she said, how, like being hungry, being satisfied, or being overly full and stopping at a certain point. And so many people have talked about basically how it's completely changed their world and given them more freedom, you know. Because, the hard thing with counting calories is it's like if you work out, you need more
Yes.
calories
Yeah, it's a
that day. It's like you can't always gauge like, well, my body needs this amount of calories every day. It actually does vary depending on your,
it's a
what
moving
you do in
target.
a day. And so that can make yeah, it can make it hard. You could end up being, eating too much one day because you didn't do anything, or being hungry in different days. So it's a much better approach, really,
Yes,
you
yeah.
know. So good. So just to cover real quick again the 4 points. And again, she made this cool little paper, and I'll put it in the blog post. But so you were
Yes.
motivated by serious health issues. That was the first point. The second key difference for doing phase three well was more knowledge about HCG when it comes to phase three and phase four, which, as she mentioned, she did by really researching more and finding the different, like for instance, now on my blog, I have a bunch of posts now about P3, like what's the
Interesting.
point of it,
Yeah.
how to do it better, that type of stuff, and as well as the books you mentioned that cover it. And then the third thing was being more open to new food combinations and preparation methods, right? So researching that, like spices, like you said, even like you said, just cutting vegetables thinner. I love how you said that, because it's true. Like sometimes just a big hunk of carrot like doesn't taste, I don't know, for some reason. But when something's shaved thin and it's like this delicate salad, or
You
it's like
got it.
carrot
Yes,
noodles,
it's
it's
wonderful.
really, the texture really is
Yes.
a lot more
Yeah.
pleasing. Yeah,
Yeah.
and things that you didn't really realize would make such a difference, that makes you happy with that new way of eating. And then your fourth point was reading and applying the info from this book, and I do recommend everyone purchase it. You can get it on Amazon.com. So, okay, cool. So you have those four things that were kind of the basis for what you decided to do after phase two. So how did you take those things and form an action plan for phase three? What did you do
Well, I
specifically?
specifically became very intentional about phase three, just as intentional about phase three as I was about phase two. Uh, took effort. It took effort, mental effort, focus, and so I wrote out a plan for myself to increase my calories very slowly, like Dr. Simeon said to do, and then I discovered not all calories are created equal. A fat calorie and a protein calorie are completely different animals. So during this time, I also kept track of my grams of carbohydrates, fat, protein. Number two, I set my protein as priority. In phase two, protein is a priority, and somehow Dr. Simeon's understood just the very threshold that we had to be at before we were wasting our muscles, and we stay with that. And so to keep that protein as priority, that is what I tried to add first into it. I found on the web places where I could put in my information and find out what my ideal protein grams are, which is anywhere, and some of the websites differ. I was anywhere from about 63 to 74 grams. So, and then the third was to
Okay.
personalize the hunger satiation chart. For me, that was the most efficient way to take Robin's amazing revelations and internalize them. I see P2 is very strict externally, taking external references. My yo-yo dieter's mentality, always taking external references. And P4, getting into the freedom of not having to worry about that, not having to count calories, anything like that, is being internally referented, understanding what my body's saying to me, taking time to listen, and then understanding what I can change, and what I better pay attention to as far as my body calling out for certain nutrients that I need. So yeah, so personalizing that chart was huge.
That's good. And what I'm thinking I might do is we'll put this chart. I'll double check with Robin, the
Yeah,
author, to make sure that I
I
can
wondered
put
about
her
that because I
chart.
really.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she'll let me do that because I'll be linking to her book, but I'll ask her, and if she's okay with it, I'll put the chart that Nancy put together with her personalizations of the hunger scale there for you guys to see, like how she approached that. Because I like how she's got fields actually with her notes for physical, mental, emotional, and actually the last one I printed out got cut off. Just maybe other
It's
notes, or
actually my
what was the
Lyme
last
disease
one?
symptoms.
Oh, Lyme symptom. Okay. Is that okay if we
Sure.
mention that you have Lyme? Okay. So anyway, that's part of the chronic health issue stuff that she deals with is Lyme disease, which I do actually get. There's a lot of people out there that have it. So she has put notes next to the hunger scale of, how she feels in these different scenarios herself personally. It's really great, so detailed. So that's good. Okay, good. So those were the three things: increasing calories in grams slowly, two, set protein as priority, and three, personalizing the hunger chart. So I wanted to just real quick go talk about your chart that you your food your P3 log showing your weight and your gradual increase of calories, maybe, because that kind of goes along with the number one action that you took
Okay,
for
yeah.
P3,
I'm going to pull
right?
that up so I can refer to it also. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So in this P3 log that that Nancy has, your weight was
Mm-hmm.
about 167 starting P3. And what's so neat, and again, I'll have this chart on the blog post, and actually, I'll probably insert it here in the video, right here, so that you guys can see it. But yeah, if you look closely at it, you'll see her weight almost stays exactly the same for all of P3, and your calories, you started out at about
Now that
700,
column's my calorie
right?
goal, and next to it is the actual.
Yeah.
And there you go. And so I
Oh, I
really
see that.
was
Yeah.
kind of all over the board. It wasn't an exact science for me.
Yeah.
Uh, but
Sure.
yeah,
Well, you're
that's I
trying
was
to eat to
beginning to
hunger
test that
too,
out,
so.
and so that's what it was.
And that is interesting. Some days you eat a lot less, and some days
Yep,
you eat
yep.
more.
The fat, carb, and protein columns, I set it so that if I went under 50 grams, it would give a highlight in green. Carbs, if I went over 20 grams, it would highlight in blue. And if I went over, if I was under 50 grams in protein, then it would highlight. So
Interesting, cool. You
yeah,
did
that's
this in
Excel.
Excel, right? You said?
um,
Oh, yep, that's great. I never did
it's
learn how to use Excel.
it,
I get confused when I
it's a
open it.
handy
Like,
tool over the years.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. So you did gradually increase your calories. I can see here you're under your actual, but then some days you still were less, and that's probably like you said because is that
Yeah,
because
because
you were eating to
I was
hunger
just like,
more?
wow,
And
I'm not hungry, or I was in a
good,
place
yeah.
where um, symptomatically I just didn't, I just didn't feel good. I didn't want to eat, and so uh, and later on, I bring out that chart where sometimes it's a symptom that I'm facing, and sometimes it's actual hunger or lack of hunger, and there's a difference. So yeah,
I,
yeah,
yeah, you can talk about that too. So I like this because and you guys can see it because I'll have it here. It is true, like I just said, that you don't need as many calories some days, and some days you need more, and that's okay. I think it's
definitely.
important to talk
Yeah,
about that actually because I feel like I actually put this in my little workbook that's
fantastic.
coming
I'm
out
looking
on
forward.
Amazon. So yeah, I wrote about the idea that I felt frustrated because I felt like when I used to read like fitness magazines and stuff, I feel like they're telling me like you need to be eating all the time or your metabolism will
Yeah,
slow down.
like fire. You have to
But then
keep.
how do you, okay, so I have to be eating all the time or I'm going to gain weight. but I'm overweight, and the only way to lose weight is to eat less than your body needs, right? So I'm like, how do I accomplish this? Like, how do I be constantly eating and still lose weight?
Great point.
You know? Oh, that's what I felt like I was
Yeah.
essentially reading, you know? And it's like easy for you to say when you're
Yeah.
already a,
Yeah.
fitness trainer and
Mhm.
you've never been overweight. Like,
Mhm.
oh, it's so frustrating. So, and I do use intermittent fasting in my life here and there. It's not an and sometimes I don't even do it every week, but sometimes like once a week, or like you said, there's a day that I'm busy. I don't feel hungry. I actually feel
Yeah.
very
If it works,
good
don't
on the
fix it.
days that I fast. Yeah, I've been doing that for 3 years, and you know what? I have a great metabolism. I don't have to undereat other days or I start gaining weight. And I realize everyone has different
Yeah.
hormone levels that can affect their
Yeah.
metabolism. But it was so freeing to realize that it's okay to not
Yeah.
eat when you're
Taking
not
taking
hungry
your
for
cues,
sometimes.
your internal compass rather than external rules or mores or whatever. Yeah, it's so freeing, huh?
Yes, it is. And so it's nice to see that variety actually in calories on you, on your days there. And that's a great idea too, how you have the things about if you go under a certain amount of protein. Can you tell me why protein is important?
Oh
You
yeah.
had mentioned
Well,
something
there's of
about,
course the below a certain level, the body begins to depend on muscle. To get the protein stores. Also, Dr. Simeons, I believe, said go under a certain level, protein deficient, the body tends to hold water. And so,
yes,
and I found when I really got serious about that, I'm going, oh my goodness, I have been so protein deficient because that was one of my challenges during B3 was, oh my goodness, I've got to eat more protein. And it was really out of my comfort zone, out of my habits to eat this much protein.
gotcha.
And so that was challenging. Um,
You said there was like a site you used to figure out how much protein your body seemed to need.
yes.
Is that what you said, or
Oh my
what was that?
goodness.
It's
I
okay.
will look
Well,
for
we'll
that.
get
I'll
it
make a
later.
note to find that website.
You might have sent me something, but
No,
I
and
thought I printed everything,
that was
but
my
I don't see
one
it.
Swiss cheese hole in information. I thought, well, okay,
Oh,
yeah. Well,
cool. So what we'll
I'll
do
get
is, yeah, don't worry about it. In the links that goes with this interview, we'll put the websites that she utilized to find some of these different like macro, amounts. Because it is true for different body. Like for me, like since I CrossFit and do a lot of heavy weightlifting, probably my protein requirements are fairly high. I don't actually know exactly because I don't count, but I do try to make sure that I eat a good amount of protein. But like you said, sometimes if it's not something you've been in a habit of, if you've been kind of more in a starch-based diet just because, it can feel different. Like you didn't realize, like, okay, this is about how much meat I need to be eating a day. Like when you don't have a reference, it's good to
a
kind of
very,
find
very
out by
good
using a
point because I've
calculator
never
like that.
been a calorie counter. As much as I love detail, I don't want to feel restricted by it. I also, I've got the other side of my brain with the artistic side, spontaneous, and so loving taking a recipe and never making it the same twice. And so uh, I just love all that. So that's where I want to be in P4. And so, but I found that I did not understand the language of grams of carbohydrates. What is a half cup of strawberries? How many grams of carbs am I eating? A half cup of banana, how many carbs am I eating? So I just took that time to learn the language of good nutrition, good P3 nutrition, good P4 nutrition, and then right after this P3, I stopped using the food log. That was part of my effort to use internal
Yeah.
cues.
You
So
graduate
it was important for me
from
to
that.
do it in that P3, and important for me not to do it afterward. So
I'm glad you really mentioned that too, because that way people can know also that just because you might be a little bit more detailed, or, like she mentioned, maybe gradually adding calories, gradually, tracking fat grams and carb grams. It's okay, like, to have a point in time during P3 that you do that with the knowledge that that's
Yeah,
not something you have
great
to
point.
do for the rest of your
3 weeks.
life. Like, it serves a
P3 is 3 weeks.
purpose. Yeah, don't feel trapped that, like, that's your new life, the only way to maintain. That's not true. But like she said, a lot of us are having to make a complete change in our life where we, like you said, you
Yeah.
have no reference point, you have no idea what's in what, and so it's like hard to make a general choice in your head when you just have nothing to go off of, um, to make a smarter choice. So like you said, using the
Mm-hmm.
P3 as a training ground to become aware just of, what's the general
Mm-hmm.
amount of carbs and
And
these
where the
types of
hidden carbs are.
foods,
I like your
so
point
that
about
later,
yogurt. I was like, there's carbs in yogurt, and I'm like, oh my, there's carbs in yogurt.
right, huh?
There's just to learn all that and
Yeah.
then carry on.
Right, because then you
Yeah.
have the basic principles, I think, in your head. Yeah, yeah, and that's helpful too, because I would feel the same way. Like, if I had to count calories to maintain in regular
Not
life,
happening.
I'd
Like I'm
feel
stuck in
horrible.
math
Like, I
class or
I'd
something.
go eat chocolate cake. Yeah, and for me, it makes me feel really like, I don't know, just
Yeah, and that's why I
trapped.
put
Like, I don't
the
know,
little
just
logo in the bottom corner of my page of a prison cell opened up with blue sky, because
that's awesome.
this is about being set free. It's not about another form of the yo-yo mentality. Yeah, it's
Right. Good. So it can be very useful though to do what you've done, within the framework, and then
yeah,
to use that to move beyond it and be more free
yeah,
in P4.
yeah,
And you
yeah.
can do that.
Thank you. I'm
That's
glad we brought
good.
that out. That's um.
Yeah. Let's see
Let's
where we're at
see.
now. Let's,
We looked at my P3 log, and oh, the P3 graphs, because I hope they're easy to see, and if I need to reconfigure them, I sure will. But they're stacked so that you can compare them one with another. Here's the weight, here's the calorie increase, and here's the uh, gram comparison. So that's Nance P3 graphs, JPEG.
I got that. Cool. What I'm going to do is, so you guys, this graph that Nancy's talking about, I'll put it here in the video right now, and it'll be in the blog post, so you can kind of see, she tracked how her, fat, protein, and carbs
Mm-hmm.
increased from the beginning of P3 to the end. So you can see that in the graph. Your calorie increase, and then your weight.
So it's
And yeah, your weight
just
was so
amazing.
stable, but so
I was
good.
amazed. I was like, this is working. It's really
And
working.
you said,
It's not that hard.
yeah. And did you say that you didn't eat fruits in P2 before this
I
P3
had
started,
a
or
few very
no?
low glycemic fruits. I had like blackberries or raspberries and a few strawberries, like a quarter cup of strawberries, or have on on on
Oh,
and
in
then on
P3.
P2 and on P3. Um,
Okay, P2.
Actually, I had some oranges because apples and oranges are technically allowed on P2. Um, Apples, no, they're just like way high off the glycemic chart for me, unless I
Right.
like would take slice one really thin and just like totally coat it with cinnamon, which helps metabolism. So, but
Yeah.
in P3, this P3, apples were out, oranges out. I took my oranges, juiced them, freeze them into cubes, and then in P4, I would put cubes of orange juice into my green smoothies.
Cool.
But I was surprised when I'm preparing for our time here, how little fruit I did eat. Looking through it, but I did have from Costco. I got a bag of the 3 berries, um, blackberries, raspberries, and blueberries, and I'd have those from time to time, especially with a little yogurt. That was a treat. So yeah,
Cool. Cool. So I'm
yeah.
pretty minimal on the fruit in P3 though. Just a little. So actually, maybe just to give a little more detail then about, so we talked about gradually increasing your calories in P3. When it came to what made up the carbs that you ate, what would you say? What was the sources of the carbs that you did
Definitely
have in
it was
P3?
definitely all veggies.
Can you give us
And
examples
yeah,
of
at the
veggies?
top
What
and
types of
at the top
vegetables? I'm
my
just curious.
um, P3 log, the very first one, I entered the types of vegetables that I usually had: zucchini, squash, romaine lettuce, radishes, yellow bell pepper, mushrooms, and some shaved carrot. Sometimes into my salad. Um, that was at the beginning, yeah. And I
Good. So
found
that's where the majority
spinach
of.
going into a green smoothie, and cucumber. My goodness, that's like a candy bar. Cucumber? That is like a candy bar. I I start to put those into green smoothies toward the end, because boy, that would just rack up the carbs. So yeah, so
Gotcha. It's interesting. Did you use the peel of the cucumber when you
no,
made the smoothie or no? I'm
um
just curious.
I would peel the cucumber. So
Sure. Okay, no, I just asked because I didn't know this until someone mentioned it, that there's actually a lot of carbs in the
interesting.
skin of a cucumber. I would have thought it
Sure.
was just like fiber carbs, but it's actually not. It's
Interesting.
actually
And
like
from
carbs.
my nutritional
Funny.
training, I learned just how much value there is in the skins and coatings of
Yeah.
fruits and vegetables. Yet, because of the pesticides, the herbicide, and the wax that they put on these on vegetables, I yeah, in the case of a cucumber, I'll peel that baby. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I just thought that was just interesting. Okay, cool. So really most of the carbs that she had then in P3 was very minimal fruit. Sounds like it was an occasional thing, and mostly from the vegetables that she mentioned. Looks like you had a little yogurt sometimes, so that would have a little bit of carbs. So, and just remembering again, you guys, that this is just a set period of time as well, just like P2. So it's not like, okay, this is my life forever. It's just realizing that when you finish
Yeah, I've
P2,
gone to
it's
all that
really
effort
not the
in
end of the
P2.
protocol.
My body is now wet cement
Yeah.
for its set point, and I've got 3 weeks to train it into its new set point, and then I'm on my way. And it made my whole P4 100 days after so much more easy, because I was intentional about that P3.
That's great. I love that illustration too, like the wet cement, and then it can solidify and harden in
Definitely,
P3
definitely.
if you treat it
I
right.
would remember that over and over again. Wait, this is a special time. This is a crucial time, and I want to stick to it. You have videos concerning when that last injection weight needs to be reconsidered, and that is such valuable information.
Good. And thank you. Yeah, it's true, because it's, like for you, you were so stable, it worked out fine. And sometimes that is how it is, where you don't need to adjust your LDW. And that's great if that happens. I had that happen a couple times. But then there are other times with the fact that the ones that she mentioned, I'll link to those articles in the blog post that goes with the interview for anyone who's wondering, like, why would there be a time that I wouldn't stabilize within the 2 pound window? Because I talk about those specific scenarios, and they do make sense. I actually just a friend who was doing hCG, she kind of panicked, texted me a while back, like, oh my goodness, like my weight's up like 5 pounds, and I keep doing steak days, and like, should I do another one? And like, I don't know what to do, and she's freaked out that it's gonna keep going up. So we kind of talked on the phone about like, okay, what could be going on, and we finally were just like, she's like, is that okay to like just stabilize a little higher? And I was like, yeah, at this point, based on everything you've told me and everything you've already tried, it sounds like adjust your mind a little bit and see if what your body's wanting to do is to stabilize. And then she texted me a few weeks later, and she's like, hey, I just want to let you know my weight hasn't moved, an ounce from that
Yes.
weight, from that adjusted LDW. Yeah, and she was so pleased because she's eating clean, she's working out, but it's like if she had kept trying to get the lower one, And then the problem is like what we were talking
Oh
about, when you're
my.
trying to make this emotional change in your life and you can't get your weight to be what you wanted,
Yes.
you end up doing stupid stuff, you know,
Yes.
and eating chocolate cake because
Yes.
you're upset, or
Yes.
fasting
I
four
like
days
it.
in a
Like
row, or
like holding it, trying to hold
you
an
do stuff.
inflated beach ball under the water in the ocean when there's 6 foot waves coming in. I mean, it ain't happening. It just, yeah. And so,
Yeah,
and as I prepared for this this
yeah.
time together in the P3, I went into my next P3 that I'm in now, and it was a real good dose for any perfectionism that I have, because this P3 is nothing like the July P3. It's a different ball game,
Really
because
good proof.
I'm facing different things metabolically, symptomatically, and is a great comfort to go, wow, I can move off that 2 pounds, that hard 1 2 pounds, and
Yeah.
actually not invest energy into holding that yo-yo down when it's gonna go. It's like a rubber band, stretching a
Yeah,
rubber
it's like you
band
kind of have to
by
know when
putting
to
that
stop.
tension on myself. Like, and that beautiful example you just gave, we don't have to do that to ourselves.
Yeah, yes, it's just kind of knowing when to stop. It's like, if it's working out good and you want to make those reasonable efforts to see, but because obviously, like you said, if you're doing a P3 where you're
Yeah.
just not doing P3 and you're
Yeah.
gaining, of course, well, there's a reason for that. But you know what you're doing and you know if you're doing everything right, or you're checking different things, and um yeah, I mean, just to clarify for you guys, with me, my first P3, I stabilized easily within the 2 pounds. I was eating low carb, but I ate quite a bit. I had thyroid meds. It was great. Later P3s, I did some different things during P2, which affected my P3. And I didn't know that at first. So it's like I took my
Yeah.
fruits out, made the diet really low carb in P2, started CrossFit, and my weight was just like I was doing these steak days and it would immediately go back up the next day. And it's just like I just could not get it to stay there. And I was trying for like 2 or 3 months, like, ugh, come on, come on. And finally, my husband, he's the smart one, he's like, honey, he's like, you're trying to build muscle, you're working hard, you're doing the right
There
things.
you
He's like,
have it.
maybe you should try to work with your body a
Yeah.
little and just kind of see where it leads, you know? I was like, that's scary. But, I'd be right,
And that's a
because this is obviously
fantastic
not working.
example of the tension that we place ourselves in to that actually keeps the yo-yo going when we're wanting to step off that whole
Yeah,
cycle, to go from being externally referended into being in touch with how our feelings, what our body wants, because our body knows what it needs, and using that hunger satiation scale to apply that immediately in the situation that we're in. And to me, that was like, wow, somebody just gave me the scissors to snip the string off that yo-yo. I don't ever have to go there again. And what you've said about changing the LIW weight, so comforting. Hearing your life experiences with this, it's just comforting. Wow, what's 5 pounds when I've lost 70? Heavenly days. I haven't been here since
right.
shortly after high school. I plan to live here,
Yeah,
and a little less,
yeah,
the rest of my life. So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and it's true because you can lose sight of that, and yeah, I mean, so finishing what I was saying about the weight going back up thing, I finally pretty much my final 2 rounds, I
Yeah.
stabilized
Yeah.
actually about 7 pounds higher. And I want to clarify that when I actually finally went and got body fat testing done, because you guys know I've done a lot of that because I wanted to know, like,
So
am I
good to
losing
keep that.
fat? What am I gaining? Majority of it
Way to
was
go.
muscle and glycogen stores. Yeah, almost all of it. And so that was like the proof, like, and because I didn't know any of this stuff either. It's like before I started blogging about it because I was like,
Yeah.
wow, I'm learning all this stuff that I was clueless about before, that kind of kept
Yeah.
me jailed in that yo-yo mentality because I didn't know all of these things. And so, finally realizing like, oh, this is what this is. And then you are free to stabilize a little higher or
That's
whatever,
it. Feel good
and
about
feel good about
ourselves
it,
and
you
and
know.
and
So,
and move on with life. Yeah, go to the next stage. Yeah, because at P3, that's
right.
just 3 weeks, and um, it can be a joy. It really can be and through July, that the longer my weight stayed stabilized, um, I was just really happy with that, and I was just savoring the foods that I got to eat. And that was one of the other things. It's like my yo-yo mentality was going, what? You ate an avocado and all that coconut fudge. I make that freezer fudge with the coconut oil and the cocoa, and you're not gaining weight. It was almost like a
Yeah,
nasty tape playing in my mind. It's like, that's right, I didn't gain a
yeah.
pound and I'm eating healthy fats and I'm gonna keep on.
Kind of curious actually, some of the other like, so you mentioned the vegetables that you ate on P3, but since you're talking about that, what were some other foods then that you were eating? So you mentioned avocado, the coconut oil, and the coconut fudge recipe, which on
Yes, yeah,
Pinterest there's all
I
kinds of
took it from
recipes
there.
for
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
I
okay,
had,
cool.
I had
What other foods did
two
you end up eating
favorites.
then in phase three?
Um, One I could eat fairly soon, and that's flaxseed crackers. And I have a dehydrator. It's one of my raw food recipes, and just take flax seeds and a little bit of ginger, a wee little bit of soy sauce, and oh boy, I forget what the other spice is, but then just spread them out thin on the dehydrator sheets, and I end up with this wonderful lacy crackers. And it took the place of gluten because I had to go gluten free,
Awesome.
sugar free, and those flaxseed crackers are just scrumptious. And the other is along the same lines. I called pizza flatbread, and uh, Alyssa Cohen wrote the book Living on Live Food, and then I want to give her credit for that recipe. There's basically almonds, flax seeds ground up with carrot, bell pepper, cilantro, parsley, um, a number of other spices. Again, made into a batter, spread out thin, put it in the dehydrator until it makes a flatbread. I mean, just like the flatbread fad that's in the stores now. But this piece of flatbread is so absolutely satisfying. I just take a few bites. I feel like I've had not fruit leather, a salad leather. I mean, it's just like, and make, yeah, I'll send you a picture.
Yeah,
I made a picture of one of my
awesome.
flatbread uh, sandwiches, just nutritious. And that's the thing about eating nutritiously nutrient dense foods. A few bites and the hunger is gone because the body says, wow, I got what I like. So that flatbread, those crackers, and then my beloved green smoothies. Really like those. That's I think with taking the green smoothie challenge that's out there for a month, I put together fruits and vegetables and herbs that I had never imagined I would ever put into one blender, and that opened me up to uh, drinking a nutrient dense food, getting the fruits and vegetables I need, and it really being yummy. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, maybe what we'll try to do is, if we can, we'll
Yeah.
try to gather a few resources for you guys, links to stuff to like a couple recipes that she's discussing, and the book, and just different things that if you're interested in checking out some of those things that she was mentioning. Because yeah, people just love, it's so nice to have actual resources. That sounds really good. How long would the dehydrator? How long does it take in the dehydrator to make like the flax
Mind you, in my
crackers?
like June, July, August, where I live, the humidity is like 4%. It's a wet day if the
Oh,
humidity gets around 17-20%. So I have an Excalibur
oh
dehydrator,
wow.
and I think it operates really fast because of the environment that I live in. But it'll work anywhere, and I think that, oh, the flaxseed crackers. I mean, anywhere from 6 hours. I think I'd turn them over after about 2 to 3 hours, and just let them get good and crispy. But just within a day.
Gotcha. That's great. Those are great resources, just those two you mentioned, because especially, when you're coming from changing from whatever diet you had before, which like for me was not good and really carby. When you make that transition, you
That's
do
huge.
have to have
Yes.
those replacements that kind of give you the feel of
Crunch is
something
big.
starchy or crunchy or the texture. Yeah, and because sometimes you might move past that after a while and not even need it at all, but
Mhm.
there's sometimes you may need that interim thing, and it's good to have like because I used to I am
Yes.
able to have because I've been in P for a
Beautiful.
long time now, almost 2 years, so but yeah, so and there are plenty of carbs that I can eat and maintain, so I do that, and that's kind of my little fix. But one thing when I was still low carb and trying to stabilize and changing my diet was that I needed to find those alternatives. So making stuff with flaxseed meal or pumpkin seed meal that was like kind of more lower carb, but that tasted like my
Yeah.
previous starchy thing, that was cookies. Whereas now I never bake at all. I don't, I just don't need, I don't feel like I need that particular thing because I have other carbs that are healthy that feel fine but it
Definitely,
was very
definitely. I'm glad
important
you
at
brought
that
that
time
up, that
to
as
me
our
making that
taste buds
change.
actually change in this lifestyle change, what we wanted before does not, is like yuck now. And what was yuck before was like, I'm gonna eat that. It's like we're looking forward to that kale salad now. Yeah.
Like, I know. And if you're, I know, and it's like if you're one of those people, like you're still eating cookies and ice cream, and you're like, I do not want kale, I do not want salad. That's how we started out too. It's like I remember eating all this junk
Yep.
food, and then trying to make dinner for my husband and my son. I did not want to eat green beans. It's like
Yep.
that looks so unappetizing because I just
Hmm.
ate 15 chocolate chips ahoy cookies and that's all I want more of, that didn't I did not you don't crave that. But when you clean out your system,
Really
which
does.
P2 helps you
Oh,
do,
really
right?
does. Yeah.
It cleans
Got to
it
drink a
out.
lot of water.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's your cravings do change, and then those foods that you used to like have to force yourself to eat,
Absolutely. I
they
mean, an
actually
avocado
become
tastes like
appetizing and they
a
start
steak
tasting
to me
good.
now, or just it's so amazing to be able to eat all these things that I really do love, and they taste so good, and my taste buds are not numbed by the processed chemicals and artificial.
That's the perfect way to say that. Yeah, your taste buds get numbed with the other.
Yeah,
You're right.
it's
That's the perfect way
so
to
much
say
better
it.
over here.
Yeah. So yeah. Let me see. So we talked
I
about
did.
this and that and
When I went
that, this and
to
that and
the
that.
hunger satiation scale, I really had, because of the hardships I was
Yeah.
facing, I had done a lot to stuff my feelings, and I was going through a lot of emotional triggers, uh, and I didn't want to. I didn't want to see what I was seeing and feel what I was feeling, and so that's even more the miracle that I would that I would be losing this weight, not using food as a crutch. But to segue into how I was in touch with my hunger scale internally, that's where I put in the HALTS. The HALTS acronym is to say this is the snip to the yo-yo
Okay.
dieting, is right here where I stop, I halt, and go, okay, what's really happening here? And that's what the HALTS page is about. And we can take as long or as little time as needed, because it's simply the questions to ask to get in touch with oneself, to go, what is really happening here inside me, to take me away from being externally referenced on, they treated me like this, they did this, I didn't get this, I deserve that, into how am I feeling, and how can I apply love and grace and mercy to my situation, how by being by being self-accepting, and the self-acceptance was huge. Whether I'm eating Cheetos and burping apple fritters at the moment, can I still love myself right in that moment and still accept what's happening in me? For me, that's like the clutch on a vehicle to begin to move in a different direction. Until I apply that self-acceptance, I stay stuck. Shame, all that, And so I didn't, I don't know.
Right.
You just kind of guide me how far you want to go with that, but that's where the rubber meets the road for the scissors. Cutting the yo-yo mentality is becoming aware of what's happening inside.
That's good. No, yeah. Why don't we talk about each of those points? So she has a little chart, or a little paper she made. I'll show it to you guys on here and in the blog post. But just about stopping the yo-yo, and it's a little acronym called
Yep.
HALTS, which you said it's adapted from Alcoholics from AA, right? So you said, when I feel the urge to eat hit me, I stop and ask myself these questions, listening to my
Okay.
gut response. So
And
HALTS.
you'll have it there
Yeah,
on
why
the
don't you talk
blog, so
about
you'll
each
be
of
able
those?
to read this. But HALT I learned a long time ago and was originally, am I too hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? And as I realized my food addictions, I applied this and it expanded a little bit. So H standing for hunger driven. Um, am I getting triggered emotionally that I want to just go into automatic and eat? Um, did what just happened? That I'm gonna turn to the fridge door instead of dealing with something that I need to deal with. Uh, my angry, anxious, or afraid. Uh, Part of my yo-yo mentality is feeling powerless. My weight's going up and there's nothing I can do about it. I might as well have that other half of that chocolate cake. So um, feeling angry or anxious or afraid, um, I found that behind that, I'm angry because my little girl in here feels very powerless and afraid and hurt. And uh, and so I'm going to stop. I want to stop and get in touch with that and apply the positivity, the parenting uh, to my person inside, rather than again turning to food to mask those feelings and just cover it up. L is lonely, and I generalize that. Am I again trying to distract myself with the way food feels, away from a painful emotion? Another one that I found is for L is lacking a nutrient. Sometimes I find myself starting to get compulsive and wanting to eat things, and I realize my body is missing a nutrient, especially with P3. And the protein and all that, the low veggies and fruits, our bodies can go into an acidic state. And I found, boy, all I need is like a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar or some of my homebrew kombucha, and it it just cuts right through my desire to forage and
Awesome.
and my body to go look for that nutrient that it's missing.
Awesome.
And it's very individual, and it's a wonderful process of self-discovery in that. Just our body has wisdom. Our body wants to be balanced and well. We just stop and say, okay, what do you need right now? And it's amazing how the answers come up. That was good. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Oh, yeah, I was gonna say that's true because sometimes it's you might need a little protein, or it might even be a little bit of extra fat you need. I love how you say that because it's true. You find yourself kind of like, ah, and kind of going for too much of the wrong thing. But sometimes, yeah, you need a little extra fat or a little extra protein. It could be either one, but because sometimes it's true when you get that, you feel like, I feel better. Like for instance, the other day, my husband, this, he had some salmon. He hadn't had it in a while, and the fat in the salmon, has like the omegas in it,
Yes.
and it just like he felt a lot calmer after having. He's like, I felt like that was just what I needed, and like he might need a little bit of that. Maybe it's been a while, and that particular, because like fats is, it's important to like the cholesterol and the like
Yes.
how the stuff, what is it, the
So important.
myelin or in your brain, like everything. It's like stuff like that is important. And it's like if there's an imbalance there, it really can help
Precisely.
your brain
Precisely.
function and
So
then
that
your
that was
subsequent
L on
choices.
that, lonely or lacking a nutrient, and then T, tired or thirsty. I have found that if I need a nap, my lifelong tendency has been to keep driving myself. A little bit of caffeine, a little bit of sugar, get to that deadline, gotta do it because I've chosen to you know to uh, to commit to too many things, and I'm a woman of my word, and I'm gonna get it done. And wow, wow, no,
Yeah,
I'm a little bit
yeah.
tired, and I need
No.
to take like a little power nap. That's what I need to. Um, or thirsty. Is this hunger I'm feeling, or am I just really feeling thirsty? If I just take a good jug of water, if I just have,
Ooh.
a good 8, 10, 12 ounces of water, um, that's what I needed, or water with lemon to help to the acidic alkaline balance. That is really to discern between what is hunger and what is thirst was big for me. And then S, that's not in the original acronym, but I added it because I'm dealing with symptoms, and more lately, because of the prescribed antibiotics, side effects. And, am I wanting to use food to temporarily mask my painful symptoms, or the side effects of a medication? And that, um, just I don't like that. I don't like being in that place at all. It doesn't seem to be going away too fast. So it's time for me to practice some self acceptance and care for myself as I would a child who's been ill. Uh, Deal with the grief of loss over things that I used to be able to do that I can't do now. Uh, the fear that I'm looking down with a tunnel with no end. So it goes in a whole thing. But again, I've got to be in touch with myself because otherwise I'm going to use food as an addiction to mask
Right.
all that.
Sometimes it feels like that's the easiest thing, like
Least resistance, the path of
like
least
it's
resistance, right
easy
there.
to
Yeah.
address it that way. Have you found in trying to address that and not doing that, what have you found ways to deal with these things
No,
in a
definitely.
healthier
I
way,
think
like different things
in
that help you to deal
very,
with
very short,
that, or
would be um, to use binders in the diet, alongside the antibiotics, which kill the pathogen, and then the die-off creates an immune response that is very uncomfortable. It's called a Herxheimer reaction, and uh, activated charcoal, diatomaceous earth, chlorella is wonderful. Chlorella is smart about what it absorbs and doesn't absorb, as far as not leaching the body of minerals. And that's another one, making sure that I've got enough minerals. Taking a high potency um, relief mineral cap every day is really important. Then opening up the detox pathways, hot baths, using essential oils, foot baths, making sure I've got fresh water, fresh air, and so on. Don't want to go on and on about that, but
you're trying to find ways
yes,
to
there,
address
that's the
it
point.
that don't involve just eating. Yeah, because you can apply that principle, even if you don't have a chronic illness, if you have other stressful things happening in your life. I think the point is to not only stop doing the unhealthy pattern you had before, which was to eat or whatever, but to find new, healthier patterns to replace them with. Just like you replace old food standbys with healthier versions, you can't just stop doing things and that's it. Like you have to replace it, you know, and finding, because I had to do that too. It's like whether it was the illness or just like you said, like I would eat because I'd get stressed too, or for me, like with CrossFit, that's something that I can do, and it really does. It just kind of keeps me in a consistent, healthy frame of mind. That if I ever do feel a little off track a day here and there with my eating or start getting kind of blah, it kind of brings me back, you know, and reminds me like, oh yeah, this is the way of life I like living, and and or even a hot
Yeah,
shower,
yeah, just
or
the good
or
self-care,
taking some time
meditation,
out to read a book,
huge.
you know.
I mean, just
Um,
settling into oneself. Um, I think through a lot of life events, and that I realized I don't want to be in my body. I don't want to be here. Ah, and it's instead of getting my knickers all in a knot, it's like, oh wait,
yeah,
I'm here. I'm gonna enjoy every moment I have, and that way with the P3 foods going into P3-4, like your husband enjoying that salmon, it's like, oh my goodness, I get to love food. I get to enjoy every bite, and just really enjoying life. Yeah, and yeah, and opening up the detox pathways
yeah, and look
with
what you
all those
can
things
do,
we
you know.
mentioned, because we live in a stressful environment,
Yeah.
and learning how to open up those detox pathways, drinking lots of water, keeping things flowing is a good thing.
Right. And yeah, and actually, you mentioned the charcoal, the activated charcoal and the chlorella, and I wanted to mention, that idea could be applied to phase two. I talked about this in another interview. It hasn't been published yet, but um, toxins are stored in fat, right? So there's this thing where I kind of feel like sometimes on P2 people feel really crummy. Sometimes they feel good, sometimes they feel crummy, and sometimes I'm thinking you're losing a lot of fat at once. That's where toxins are stored. Um, when you're
Oh,
losing that
definitely.
fat, toxins can be getting into your bloodstream, right? It's like if mercury or aluminum or all those things that could contribute to feelings of unwellness on P2. And I do think that there's merit in the idea of taking both chlorella and the
Yeah,
activated charcoal maybe on P2. I mean, that's
that's
kind of being a
wisdom.
little
Yeah,
bit of an
that's great.
experiment. But this one gal I talked to, that's
Yeah,
what she was doing.
that's really
Yeah, and I
good.
was like, wow, I can't believe I never thought of that. Like, that's a
Yeah.
pretty neat idea. So you guys might
Mhm.
want to check into that activated charcoal and chlorella because, like she says, it binds with various things. And if it just basically can help get it out of your body better instead of it just
Definitely,
circulating
definitely.
around in
And
your
just a
in your
theory
blood
that I
and then
have with that,
resettling somewhere else,
those pounds that I
you
put
know.
on years ago um, went on with a certain avoidance tactic or stressful situation or locked up emotion. Uh, and could it be from an energetic standpoint that those are being flushed away and released too as we are losing that extra weight? Just a theory.
Yeah, no, that's really neat. Actually, speaking of that, I almost forgot you had mentioned a little story about a stall. I think it was a stall that you had during P2, and I wanted to know if you'd share
Yes,
it.
I
Yeah,
was
just share.
visiting
You
with a
had a stall
friend,
during
someone
P2.
whose
What led
counsel
up
I
to that?
just really respect, and this was much earlier in the spring. And when she saw me one day, she goes, "Oh, you're looking so thin. You look gaunt. You look." And I was like, now I hadn't told her about hCG. I really keep that under wraps because I don't want, nope, don't mess with my hCG.
Yeah,
um, and
yeah.
so
Just don't want to deal
um,
with it.
it took me back because
Yeah.
I'm open to this person, everything. And besides that, I still weighed like 180 something. It's like, I ain't gone. Not too thin. But
Yeah, you're
something
five
in
five,
me, it was
so
like the little, the yo-yo mentality, or I call it, the self-sabotage the guy with a self-sabotage gun closet, he's just waiting for to jump on something like that and go, yeah, man, I'm shooting myself in the foot. Yeah, I am a little gone. Maybe I should stop right here. I don't need to lose any more weight. In fact, I've taken this too far. And the next day, yeah. Oh, I think I'll celebrate. And the next day,
Eat.
I had a stall, and I wasn't even in 10 days into my P3, where this wonderful pound and a half, 2 pound releases can happen, and I went right into a stall, and I'm like, oh my goodness, how subtle but how powerful. And so I forgave my friend. And no names used, but I mean, this person is like 250 pounds, and I said, wow, she's looking through her 250-pound eyes at me shrinking, and I may look pretty thin, but.
Right.
Uh, yeah, and so, I mean,
Right.
it all, turned out
Perfectly.
well. We, continued to hang out, but that I was thought that's a
But
lesson
that's
right there.
yeah, and it just shows,
Yeah.
how much it is true that outside input can
Oh,
affect you
yes, it's
emotionally, and it
amazing the
actually seems to
interconnections.
translate into a
Yeah,
physical result. Yeah, and that's why, like you said, some people choose to keep their HCG
yeah,
journey kind of like, a secret or under wraps, if you will, and there's nothing wrong with that. Um, some people feel really bold and they're like, I don't care, they're gonna know, and I'm fine. And if you're strong like that, great, and do that. But if you don't feel ready to kind of handle that constant, like a lot of negative input,
yeah,
there's no shame in doing whatever you need to do
yeah.
to make it successful for you. And if that means keeping it under wraps, fine. P2 is no
Agree.
time to be dealing with those kinds of experience every other day, And if you're going to be inviting that, it may not be wise, because as strong as we like to think we are, sometimes it's those things
Yeah,
can affect us. I'm kind of sensitive too. It's like if I get a negative comment on YouTube on my video, like some, I mean, I've been doing this for 2 years and I try to like not let it bother me, but sometimes it
you
still
go,
will.
girl.
It'll ruin my
Yeah,
day and I'll feel horrible. And so I just don't read it, anymore. Just like forget it. I just don't want to know.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah,
I know
yeah.
I'm doing my
It's
best.
more
They can
about
think
you than
whatever
it is
they
about
want,
me. Yeah,
I just don't want to read
yeah.
it.
So,
You got to do what you got to do. And only you know, like, where you are with your own progress. Like you said, she was thinking, like, you're too thin. And the thing is people are used to seeing you overweight. So any difference, I got the same thing, I'm 5'1". I did one round, lost 27 pounds. I was still about 30 pounds
mhm.
overweight, but people were like kind of making me feel uncomfortable, making comments, and like it almost felt like they were purposefully trying to
Exactly. It's
make me
it's
feel
interesting how
uncomfortable so that I'd like gain
subtle
more
it
weight
can
back or
be.
something. Like it was
One
a great
had a friend last
time.
week say, she hadn't seen me in a long time, and she has done hCG before, and she has gained it all back and then some, and so I didn't say anything, but in our conversation went on, and she goes, yeah, you lost it, and you don't have it to lose. I'm like, and that's where I was armed with the knowledge that my
Yeah.
base weight is probably about 134 pounds. And I'm still a good 15, 20 pounds away from that. I'm not in the danger zone
Yeah.
by any stretch of the imagination. And when I set my goal for
Right. Yeah.
148 this time, I
Yeah.
had to deal with fear that I'm too thin. I'm just like, oh. No, no, no.
Mhm.
And that is, we'll give you a website to find out
Yeah.
what is your lean weight, what is your base weight. You add a percentage to that for your healthy fat, and you you know where you stand,
Right.
and yeah, confidence.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a good point. Then you feel more confident about. Yes, there's basic weight ranges for each height,
Yep.
you know. And like she said, how much lean mass you have and how much fat mass. And all those things can give you
Yeah.
a good gauge, And I think for the most part, most people, unless you have a true eating disorder, like anorexia, you know, but that's not
Yeah.
for the most part. I mean, I interact with so many people, and I really have run into that very rarely, you know. So it's like, you know, it's just people getting used to you. It's like if you had been 145
Right.
for the last several years, all the people who knew you, none of them would have said you look too thin.
Yeah, and
Right?
that's how I
That's
can
just how they
just
know you, and
extend
you would look normal to them. It's
forgiveness for
just
that
because you
barb
came from a higher weight.
and you know, they just don't know the new me yet.
Right. And some people are pretty too. Right? Some people are just yeah. Right. And the proof is in the pudding too. It's like some people are just skeptical of things, and you know, it's just like when I originally went on this protocol, you know, I have a good friend, and um she's like, oh, I researched it, but it looks kind of dangerous or whatever, and you know, like, and I was like, you know, that's fine, but she was still supportive. But the point is now it's like the proof's in the pudding. It's been over 2 years since I finished the diet. I maintained for months on end before that as well, and on during HP3. And so it's like technically I've been maintaining weight loss from the diet for 3 years, really. So it's like, and I have all my how much muscle I have. I lift heavy weights. It's like you can tell there's no way, like, you know, the proof's there. It's like, okay, this ended up
Yeah,
working
and
out.
that's
I
like
was, you know,
we
not
we
sure about
plant
it
a
at first,
seed,
but
we
we
cover
can
it in the
see the
ground, we keep
results.
it hidden.
So,
The fruit, the flower of that plant, like in your life now, 2 years later, is well seen and well documented too, with your lean muscle, the fat ratios. You know, it's I think it's perfectly appropriate for a season to have that seed in the ground, and that, you know, because we're dealing with becoming more honest with ourselves in this process
right,
to make it a lifestyle change.
right,
And yeah, so it's a
right,
process, and it's
right.
okay.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. Well, thanks so much for sharing, you know, all of this today. It's been so useful. You went to so much trouble to
Yeah,
track all
I
this,
just
and you know,
really
and we'll share it with everybody to look
thank
at.
you very
I think it'll
much
be
for the
really helpful for
opportunity to
everybody.
interview, take this time together, and I just really hope that it's beneficial to more than a few people.